Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, which is in our Reengineering the Chess Classic series. I'm Grandmaster Matthew Sadler, and we're just taking a short little look at a nice little episode from the game Carl Schlechter against Schlechter-Suechting in the Barman Meister 1905. I just saw this position and the ensuing continuation. I just sort of wondered about it, so I thought I'd let my engines have a little look at it. In principle, normally these positions should be just very nice for white. We've got a nice strong knight on e5, supported by pawns on f4 and d4. And that knight attacks both, the f7 square and also the c6 square. And of course, black's queen side has been weakened by the exchange of light-squared bishops. So, in principle, we've got quite a nice, tempting square there on c6 for a white piece. If you could get a rook onto c6, for example, that would be absolutely amazing. There's also the plan that, we'll see Schlechter play in the game, where white can also gain some space on the king side with moves like g4 to g5 and try and disrupt this central structure. First of all, if you move this knight away from f6, then the rook on d5 is loose, and also, of course, the pawn on e4 has a problem. I suppose there's two things really to the position that, surprisingly to me, seem to make it quite decent for black. First of all, the ability to play c5 quite easily for black. This rook on d5 is well placed for that. Secondly, once this knight on f6 moves away, then f7 to f6 is a possibility to drive the knight away from e5. So, I don't know. I was expecting this to be much better for white, but actually, as it turned out, the engines think that it's about equal. And the way that Schlechter played it, I think essentially Schlechter thought the same as me and was really thinking that he was pressing like a lunatic, whereas in actual fact, according to the engines, he was destroying his position. So let's have a look how that went. So g4 was played. Very sharp move, threatening g5, winning a piece. Rook d6 played by Suechting, g5, and then knight d5. And the bit of the problem really is that black's getting in f6 quickly, and it's just an annoying little thing. You don't immediately have to move the knight. For example, if I play a move like rook d2, f6, I can just play takes, king h1. This is dragon against stockfish, and the idea is if d takes f takes c5, I've got d takes c5, and this one is hanging. But black sort of just plays normally, and eventually that knight will have to retreat. We go rook g8, takes. Eventually the knight has to retreat, and then there's not really that much wrong for black. Actually, this knight doesn't have. I suppose that's one of the things. If you're evaluating potential of the position, as the engines are so good at doing. You've got to look at, my knight's on e5. If it gets driven away, does it have a good second square to go to? Well, if it doesn't have c6, which would be sort of decent, then actually in this position there's not so much. So maybe white's position is a bit more fragile than you think. It really depends very much on that knight on e5. But Schlechter, I think, just carried on with the idea of, I must be better here, so I've got to prove something. And he played this very sharp move, queen c2. So it allows knight e3, but then we've got queen e4, which would be a nice little counter-attack, attacking the rook on a8. You can go knight d5. That wouldn't be so terrible either, I don't think. But what the engines recommend is the move f6. Now, I'm not quite sure. In the score that I've got, it says that black played f5 here. But the engines absolutely detest f5 because the knight on e5 is completely safe, and they just think you just play a move like king f2, you're going to get an h4, you're going to line up on the c file, and white will just stand very well with this eternal knight on e5. And to be honest, it doesn't quite feel like a normal human move, to be honest. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if black didn't play f6. But anyway, the score that I've got is f5. G takes f6, G takes f6. And now, Schlechter didn't play this just to retreat the knight back to c4, after which rook c6 might be a little bit irritating, just attacking that one and threatening knight takes e3. His idea was to play queen takes e4. And the nice point is that after d takes c5, after f takes c5, we've got d takes e5. And this looks to be pretty good after all. I'm threatening e takes d6, and I'm also threatening rook takes d5. Haha! But I'm not threatening e takes d6 because there's queen takes e4. Actually, this pawn is pinned to the queen. And I don't have anything like queen g2 check to get out of the pin with tempo because there's rook g6. So actually, this is not winning anything. Black can simply take on e5 with impunity. Actually, the engines thought that you should play c6 first. Get your pieces organised first of all and then take on e5. That would be even better. But yeah, black took on e5, d takes e5, and then played c6. And now we reach the critical position. So, what is white going to do here? Well, my engines were looking at playing king h1 here, but yeah, and then they were just exchanging off queens, and this is not this is not what Schlechter had in mind. I think the only move that any human player would play is f5, and well, this covers the this contains the unpleasant threat of queen g2 check, followed by e takes d6. So king h8, queen d4, and yeah, I mean, this is really an example of how quickly games can turn, and you don't realize how much that can happen yeah, until you analyze with engines and you see that these sharp positions, one misstep and then all of a sudden you're going from a win to a draw, another one and then it's a draw to a loss. It's really so many games like this are just completely on the edge. What the engines wanted was a way of playing that wasn't at all obvious to me, but does make sense actually. It was to play queen g5 check, king h1, and then rook d8. So you're keeping your queen in the range here really to deal with any e6 check. You can go queen f6, or you could even go maybe knight f6 sometimes. And at the same time you're keeping the attack on this pawn. You're also threatening stuff like knight e3. It feels weird, right? Because you really have the feeling, and this is what Suechting played in the game, that let's get that rook to the g file, involve it in the game, involve that rook in the game, start attacking the white king. That's the human feeling. But somehow what the engines come up with is just some very restrained idea, but that puts pressure on all of white's pawns basically. So. And of course, I mean, you are threatening something like rook g8 now anyway on top. So e6 check, knight f6 was what the engines wanted there, and now the move h4, rook takes d4, h takes g5, rook h4 check, king g2, and now rook g8. Now it's an incredible little idea here, rook d8. So looking for g takes f6, which is well, it's a very nice little potential cube of pawns there. But what black can simply do is go rook check, king f3, rook 4 g5, takes, and well, it's still not 100% easy, but white only really has one pawn for the piece, so it's not really going to be enough there. Now the alert amongst you might well have noticed that, hey Matthew, after you go this e6 check, knight f6, can't we just take on d8 and win win 2 rooks for the queen? Isn't this just quite interesting for white? Well, I thought so too. I absolutely thought so too, but there's a rather annoying little idea. We go king g7, and well, the queen's threatening to get active here, which you certainly don't want, but you've got rook g1, haven't you? Well, knight g4 is the move, and it would be very easy to miss that after something like h3, you've just got queen d8 here. That's the big problem. That's the tactical foundation of this whole idea. And after rook d7, I go king h6, and again, if you go h3, I just do something like queen h4, and then rook g4. I just got takes, and then check, and then takes, and it's all working for black. Yeah, just incredible all this stuff, huh? But yeah, that was queen g5, king h1, rook d8. Not an easy line to see, as I'm sure you can imagine. Suechting played something very natural. He played rook g8 check, and rook h6. And this seems completely what it should be, basically. Surely we should be aiming to hit the white king here, but it's rather more difficult than you think. So e6 check played. So knight f6 is possible. Then we go rook g1, takes, queen c7, rook g2, and well, the engines actually thought that this position was about equal. It's just somehow, with the exchange of rooks, all these pieces are just not very well placed, and white's got ideas of e4 to e5. So I wouldn't be 100% sure about this position. The engines found that the best way to play for black was to to give a queen check, and just basically try and keep on checking if white ever plays the move e4 to e5. But black played queen f6, and then e4 happened, and now it starts getting quite crucial for black. There was one good way to play here, although it's getting very, very difficult now, and that was to play rook h4, pinning the pawn to the queen. So you force white to take on f6 like that, and after e5 you play knight g4. So okay, some decent threats there at least. But then we go rook d2, knight e3, forking these two guys, and then rook f3. And what black was playing in my games was knight d5, rook e2, and rook f4 here. Still getting very sharp, but you get the sense that black will be able to, if you take on the rook, will be able to give up the knight for that pawn, pick it up, and then we'll end up in some sort of drawn rook ending somehow. But it's obviously already getting a little bit fraught. Suechting took on d4 and played knight e3. Similar sort of idea, I think, but rook g1 was the problem here, and just being able to sidestep this attack with the with threatening an exchange of rooks is terribly difficult for black here. And Suechting tried knight g4. But after rook g4, rook takes g4, e7, it was time to resign. Black's got no sort of possibilities of any attacks along here, and this guy is queening. Rook g8, we go rook d8, and that's end of story. So there we are, just a quick little game, just an interesting little episode there. This piece sack, I was wondering what it was worth. The engines thought that it was, in principle, not worth that much. But, seeing how quickly the game turned around with just a couple of errors from Suechting, very natural errors as well, I think you can see that it was a pretty good practical attempt. There we are. Hope you enjoyed that. If you liked it, give a like, subscribe to the channel, take a look at my new book, Reengineering the Chess Classics. And otherwise, glad you watched the video and hope to see you around. Thanks for watching.